So, hi Ali, thank you very much for granting us some of your precious time. On Thursday, you will hold a welcome address to the plenum of this year's St. Gallen Symposium. Why do you think it's so important this year to talk about just power?
Well, I think that just power is really for our generation, it is the main challenge. I think that historically and up until recently, we've been accustomed to thinking about how we can exercise power over each other. So we think about a hierarchy among countries, a hierarchy among people. How do we exercise power over each other? But now, I think that given the challenges that we face, whether you look at climate change, whether you look at reducing systemic risk in financial markets, those are challenges where they affect all of us. And so whether I'm more powerful than you or vice versa doesn't influence my ability to solve that challenge. So increasingly, we need to think about exercising power with each other rather than over one another. And I think that's my conception of just power, is exercising power with each other rather than over one another to deal with these challenges.
So also in the next 2 days, you're going to be able to talk to a lot of powerful decision makers nowadays. Looking at the current political and economic environment, what is your most pressing issues you would like to discuss with them?
I think the biggest concern is not even so much a particular issue. So at one level, there are the individual issues, like I mentioned, climate change, systemic risk in financial markets. But the issue that subsumes those is the absence of global cooperation. And there are two sort of worrisome trends. One is an absence or lack of global cooperation on very important issues. And then the other trend is retrenchment by major powers that are needed for that cooperation. So China will increasingly be preoccupied with internal challenges. The United States will increasingly be preoccupied with internal challenges. And so if the need for global cooperation is increasing on the one hand, and the countries whose cooperation is needed are turning inward to address increasingly severe challenges, that gap is a gap that bears on, in global governance, it bears on all the challenges that we talk about. So I think that the major issue I would want to discuss with policymakers is how can we bridge that gap between this lack of global governance on the one hand and this increasing tendency for countries to turn inwards and face problems. How do we bridge that gap?
You, as a likely future leader, you have or you will have a lot of power, presumably. How do you intend to use it?
I think that's the question that everybody we all have ideas about how we would use power in the abstract when we're not in positions of power. So I have certain ideas, certain principles, but when you actually come into a position of power or influence, people's perceptions tend to change. So all I can do, I can speak about how I would like to use power now that I'm not in a position where I hold one. I think that for me, my greatest hope for using power would be to empower others. And this goes along with my conception of just power, which is that increasingly we have to exercise power with each other. And we also have to be brave in the sense of realizing that the greatest hope for our own progress, the greatest hope for our own empowerment actually lies in the progress and the empowerment of others. And it requires a leap of faith. And I think that if I were in a position of power, as the world becomes more multipolar, as more people and actors come to participate in global politics, it'll be increasingly important for us again to think about not you over me or me over you, but how we can progress together. So if I were in a position of power, I would like to work as much as possible to incorporate this paradigm. It is a paradigm shift of just power, because right now we focus too much on pure power, realism, power politics, and I think that paradigm needs to change. So if I could even make a small dent towards incorporating that paradigm into international politics, I would consider it a good use of my energy and time.
So then we wish you all the best for the next 2 days, and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.